Administering something that serious takes a trained hand, which is exactly why Michael always kept a certain kind. June 25th, 2009. That's the day the world lost the king of pop, and honestly one of the most famous human beings who ever walked the planet. Michael Jackson, king of pop, rock, and soul, was only 50 years old, and here's the part that always gets me. He was genuinely excited, because his 3 kids, Prince, Paris, and Blanket, were finally going to get to see their dad up on stage, doing what he did best. At the time, Michael was deep into prepping a comeback run of shows called This Is It. This wasn't going to be just another concert series. It was shaping up to be one of the biggest events in showbiz history. So when the news of his death hit, nobody could believe it. The whole world just kind of froze. But what actually happened that day? If you pull up Wikipedia right now, it'll tell you the official cause of death was cardiac arrest, brought on by acute propofol and benzodiazepine intoxication. So, drug addict, case closed? Not so fast. Things here are a lot messier than they look on the surface. And honestly, I think Wikipedia oversimplifies it. In this video, I want to walk you through what really happened to Michael Jackson, but more importantly, why it happened and whether his life could have been saved. Spoiler, I think it absolutely could have. Here's the thing that surprised me most when I dug into this. You look at Michael's glamorous, larger-than-life lifestyle, and it's almost impossible to imagine that the greatest entertainer of all time spent most of his life in serious physical pain, but he did. It started in 1984. Michael was shooting a Pepsi commercial when a firework went off too early and set his hair on fire. I'm not exaggerating, the man was literally on fire. That night, he suffered second and third-degree burns to his scalp and body, and that's also the night he got his first real introduction to 2 things that would follow him forever: pain medication and plastic surgery. Then came 1999. Right in the middle of a show, an aerial platform malfunctioned, and Michael fell 50 feet to the ground. The accident did permanent damage to his spine. He collapsed after the performance and got rushed to the hospital, where, once again, they put him on heavy painkillers. From that point on, back pain and the meds that dulled it became a permanent fixture in his life. And over time, all that stress and pain snowballed into much bigger health problems. The worst of them, in my opinion, was his insomnia. And I don't mean tossing and turning for an hour. I mean stretches where he didn't sleep for 3, 4, even 5 days straight. The only thing that could knock him out was painkillers and sedatives. By the end of the 90s, Michael had developed a serious dependence on propofol, which, just so we're clear, is a powerful sedative that anesthesiologists use to put patients under during surgery. We're not talking about a sleeping pill here. He was so used to drifting off under propofol that he actually nicknamed it his milk, because the stuff is milky white. Let that sink in for a second. That tells you everything about how normalized this had become for him. So fast forward to early 2009. Michael signs a big lucrative deal with media giant AEG to put on a string of concerts in London. The This Is It tour was supposed to be the grand return of the world's greatest entertainer. The plan: first show in July 2009, with rehearsals kicking off in late April at the Staples Center in LA. But because they were racing against the clock, prep turned into this brutal, exhausting grind almost overnight. And remember, Michael hadn't done full-scale live shows in over 10 years. Suddenly he's expected to dance, sing, lock in with the band, and strategize with the production crew for hours on end, 5 or 6 days a week. To stay sharp, he needed real sleep. And to shut down that nagging back pain, he needed even more than that. So his solution was to push through this grueling stretch the way he always had, with his old reliable friends, propofol and benzodiazepine. But here's the problem. You can't just pop a pill of propofol like it's ibuprofen. Administering something that serious takes a trained hand, which is exactly why Michael always kept a certain kind of companion close by. A doctor willing to help him with this very delicate, very risky habit. As part of his deal with AEG, Michael asked them to bring on a personal physician for the tour. AEG said sure, and they hired Dr. Conrad Murray, a guy who'd known Michael well before the rehearsals ever started, and who, let's be honest, knew exactly what kind of unusual requirements he was signing up for. So here's what was basically happening every single night after rehearsal. Michael would leave the Staples Center and head back to his LA home at 100 North Carolwood Drive, where Dr. Murray would administer propofol and other drugs. They'd even converted one of the bedrooms into a makeshift medication room. Night after night, Dr. Murray was essentially putting Michael under anesthesia in his own house, without the proper medical equipment that, for what they were doing, was absolutely non-negotiable. And that detail right there is where this whole thing starts heading toward disaster. So what happened the night Michael died? Here's the unsettling part. It was just another ordinary night. Nothing felt special or off. Dr. Murray gave Michael a small dose of propofol and put him on a drip. Let me break that down, because the drip part matters. With propofol anesthesia, a doctor first gives a small dose to get the patient to fall asleep. But after that, they have to maintain a steady level of the sedative in the blood, otherwise the patient wakes right back up. So shortly after that first dose, Murray hooked Michael up to a drip, slowly and continuously feeding the drug into his system to keep that concentration stable. And here's where it all went wrong. The reason a doctor needs proper equipment for something like propofol is that the human body's reaction to strong sedatives can be unpredictable. And I mean wildly unpredictable. There are different levels: mild sedation, moderate sedation, and deep sedation. In mild or moderate sedation, the patient is still breathing on their own. The brain handles it automatically. But in deep sedation, the brain stops controlling breathing, and the patient has to be put on a ventilator just to keep oxygen flowing. And here's the scary part. The line between moderate and deep sedation is razor thin. Propofol is notorious for pushing people into deep sedation way too easily. That night, Michael's body reacted abnormally and slipped into deep sedation, and nobody caught it. There was no equipment monitoring his heart rate or pulse, no alarm to alert Dr. Murray that something was happening. And in the worst possible coincidence, Murray had stepped out of the medication room for just a few minutes. At the exact moment, Michael basically stopped breathing. In medical terms, that's respiratory arrest. And here's what kills me about it. At that point, he could still have been saved. He'd stopped breathing, so really, the only thing he needed was oxygen. But Murray simply wasn't equipped or prepared to deal with it. When he came back and realized something was wrong, he misread the whole situation. He thought it was cardiac arrest, a heart problem, when it was actually respiratory arrest. So he started doing CPR, which was exactly the wrong move for what Michael actually needed. On top of that, he didn't call 911 right away. By the time real help arrived, it was too late. Later, Murray gave his own version of events. He claimed he only gave Michael that initial dose to help him fall asleep, and that Michael hooked himself up to the drip while Murray stepped out to make a phone call. The court and jury didn't buy it. And frankly, neither do I. Here's my honest take. Michael's condition wasn't some secret the people in his inner circle of business partners knew, but nobody actually wanted to step in and help him get clean. At the end of the day, he could have gone to rehab if just one person had cared enough to push for it. But that's the gut punch, isn't it? A Michael Jackson performing live, even while running on drugs, was a whole lot more profitable than a Michael Jackson sitting in rehab, getting healthy, and fixing his addiction. And I think, deep down, that math is exactly what cost him his life. So that's the story of how Michael Jackson died. That's how it really went down.